Okay, there are just a couple of small things I wanted to go over about Photoshop editing basics. I have module 1 pulled up here. Some of you guys are already going to know some of this information, and some of you, this will be very new. So feel free to pause this video as you need to, replay it, work through it at your own pace. One thing I wanted to highlight right off the bat is this Photoshop Basics link. If I click on that, I should be taken to this screen. You have to click up at the very top in this gray bar, and it's going to take you to this link. Adobe has some awesome tutorials. So if there are things that I have, maybe I need some more time or some more explanation on, you can always check these tutorials out in addition to mine. So again, feel free to scroll through. This is going to go a little bit more in depth than what we're going to start with at this point in the semester. But the nice thing about this is that there are sample files you can download them with to practice. So say you're nervous about using your own pictures to edit on, you're like, you can click on this Get Files and it will download them. Depending on your internet connection, it might take a little bit of time. They're pretty large files. You can see it's gonna take me another like 6 minutes to download this. So if you have a slow internet connection, be aware of that. I'm gonna let it keep going, keep doing its thing. I'm gonna minimize this window and I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna show you how to open Photoshop. So for those of you who don't know, again, I have a Mac. My screen's going to look a little bit different than yours possibly, but I'm going to go ahead and click on this. It's almost an infinity sign. This is my Creative Cloud logo. This is where it is in the menu for me. If you can't find it, you can always search on your computer for it. I just have to go ahead and click on Photoshop. It's already open, so let's go ahead and show you what it looks like when it's not open. So if I don't already have the program open, I click on Photoshop and it loads. I have this beautiful image and it takes you to this beginning screen. And you can see that I spend some time working in Photoshop. It's kind of a force of habit for me here. Because again, I have a Mac, this green button in the left corner maximizes my window. Depending on what computer you're using, your controls are going to look a little bit different. So when I first open it up, this is what it looks like. I know that I have a file specifically I want to edit. So I'm going to click on open. I'm going to find it. It is under, let me find it. I have a lot of files, you guys. Here we go. It's this image right here. So you can see that organizing your files is a good thing. I can go ahead and open it now, and it will pull this up in Photoshop for me. So it will take a little bit of getting used to looking at the layout of this setting. It's not something I'm going to walk in and just master right off the bat. If you look on the left here, this is my toolbar. So if I want to change or edit something in it, this is usually kind of what I always go back to. And if you hover your mouse over the icon, it will give you a brief description about how to do it. So that's really nice. If again, I'm a little lost, I forgot what something does, I can hover over it and Photoshop will tell me. I also have a menu bar up here. Again, don't have to go too far into depth with it, but it's important to be aware of. And then over here, I have my layers. This is going to be kind of the heart of how this program runs. I always compare it to a filing cabinet, and as we go throughout the semester, maybe that'll make a little bit more sense. Basically, Photoshop works by kind of stacking layers of information on top of each other to make a final image. And so if you can't see something, chances are you may have hidden a layer or you may have moved them around. So again, I'll show you that in a little bit. So I have this image here. I'm going to just show you a couple small things on. So this was taken over the summer at the Chicago Cultural Center. So the very first thing I want to do, say I open my image and maybe I want to crop it. This button right over here on the left looks kind of like a square with a couple loose ends. I'm going to click on that, and right away it is taking me to some constrained proportions, meaning these two images here, two numbers here, the 13 and the 19, it tells me that when I go to change the proportions of the photograph, it's going to try and make it so I can print it at 13 by 19 no matter what. It can be very useful if I know, like, I can change it. So say I know I want it to be like 8.5 by 11, I can change it. I can enter those numbers and I can hit enter, hit that check mark over on the right, and now I've already done that. Say that I did something I don't want to do like this. I don't want to crop it like this. I go to edit. That first option is undo crop. Boom, it's back to where I started. If I don't want to keep these proportions, all I have to do is hit clear in that menu bar, clear. And now I'm free to make the proportions of whatever size I want. So say, again, this is a pretty radial image because it's a circle. I'm just going to try and just take off some of the unevenness on that side. And again, once I'm happy with it, let's just leave it there for now. I'm going to hit that check mark to crop it. Not a huge difference. Again, this isn't an image you see too much of, but I can play around with that. Next, say I want to adjust the brightness of the image. There is a little half circle under this layers that I click under, and I go straight to brightness and contrast. And now I can start to play around with how bright I want my image. If I shift this slider all the way to the right, it's going to be really bright. If I shift it all the way to the left, it's going to be really dark. So I play around trying to find something that looks balanced. Say I've decided, okay, well now everything looks like it's too similar in value. I can decrease or increase the contrast with the same idea. So if I remove the contrast all the way to the left, it's not, it's going to be kind of a dull image. If I really bump it up to the right, it's going to be really aggressively in your face. So I'm going to try and find a happy medium between the two. Let's go ahead and leave it there for now. And once I'm happy with that, I can hit this caret, close it, and you can see, where are my layers? I've lost them. Well, I click on this layers panel and it brings me right back to it. And if I want to see what it looked like beforehand, this little eye here shows me what my layers look like. So I can see what the difference in my edits is. So just because there's not a little eye there doesn't mean that layer doesn't exist. It just means it's not visible to you on the screen. So all I have to do is click on it and now it's visible again. If I go back to that half circle again, I can go under hue and saturation. And this is going to let me play around a little bit with the color. So again, you can see most of my edits at this point are going to be based on this sliding scale. I can change the hue around. So say I want the picture to look mostly blue. I want to change the whole color scheme around. I can do that. Say I want it to be mostly purple. I can do that. I can change what the hue is. If I enter 0 here, it takes me right back to normal. This middle bar is saturation. So that is again how kind of how bold or intense the color is. If I want to bump up my value, make it seem really bright, really colorful, I go all the way to the right and you can see now it's almost a kind of golden halo effect. If I go all the way back down to the left, it goes to black and white. So again, part of this is trying to figure out what looks good. I don't want to make it too bright. For me, it's a little over the top in this particular image. So I might increase the brightness, or sorry, the saturation just a little bit, but I'm not going to go crazy doing that. Again, I can click on that double caret. I can click back to layers and now it shows me what I've done. Of course, there are a lot of other options that we're gonna delve into. This very first assignment, I mostly want you to focus on cropping, brightness and contrast, and then adjusting that saturation. Once you're done with this, so now I'm like, okay, I'm gonna leave this image as is. I'm going to call this a day. There is a button over to your right of that layers bar that I'm going to click on. I'm going to go ahead and flatten my image. And the reason I do that is because it reduces my file size. It also makes this more compatible to open in other programs depending on what my goal for the image is. The next step, if I go ahead and I exit out of here, I'm going to lose all my edits. It's going to go back to the original file. So I want to make sure I save all my hard work. At that very top menu, there's a button that says File. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to click on Save As. If I go under this screen, I want to make myself a folder to keep them all in. On my computer, I just hit this new folder, and I might say Project 1 Images. It helps me keep things organized. I want to make sure that when it says Format selected, it's JPEG. I don't want it to read Photoshop because I can only open it in Photoshop. Then I can't go ahead and easily upload it online. So I'm going to hit JPEG. I'm not going to worry about the color profile right now. We'll talk about that a little bit more later. And I'll hit Save. And this image, this box is going to come up. And right now you can see this is a really large file. It's at 13.2 megabytes. Typically, to upload these quickly, especially depending on your internet connection, I want to keep them around 1 to 2 megabytes. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to move this slider over. I still kind of want to keep the quality as best I can, but I'm going to move it a little bit until I see that number start to decrease. So you can see it takes a little bit of time. Right now I'm going to keep it at that, and it's going to hit low. I'm going to hit OK. And now it's gone ahead. It saved that for me. And now I can open another image and work on it. So I know this was kind of a lot of information, but again, I want you guys to have fun. I think a lot of the great part about digital photography comes in with the editing. There's a lot you can do with it. So please feel free to ask me questions. I will try and get back to you as quickly as I can. And happy editing.